Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Cyberpunk Game Jam Showcase Volume 3, and today we've got another docket of 5 cool-looking games to check out. I'm, of course, Larry the Chupacabra, and let's dive right in. Alrighty, so the first game up on the docket is Dayglow Empire by Lux PP, and this is a cool kind of shooty, don't get shot up in avoidance game. And the whole goal is you're some sort of cybernetic rebel. There's a little intro, and the robots are kind of recounting your rap sheet and your age and who you are, and you're suspected to be part of some sort of order. Maybe you're a hacker, maybe you're a spy, but you gotta get away from the popo, or else they'll murgle you. They don't want you alive. They don't need you alive, apparently. They just want to make you dead. And the only way to escape them is to jump on one of these floating cars and get to the other building to safety. And so, jump on that car and get going. So, there's a couple of obstacles. Obviously, gravity will kill you dead when you're floating around up in the air, jumping off of cars. The second is that, obviously that police cruiser's got a machine gun of some sort of laser variety. And he's also got a vertical laser boom beam that he'll run up on you and turn you into vaporized, ionized particles. So those are a couple things to be looking out for. And then, of course, there's the occasional, I'm sure you may notice in the footage, there's these little reticles that warn you of something up ahead. There's a set of different enemies that you can run into. They're not totally after you, they're just kind of obstacles in terrain of little, street signs and stop signs and signs that are just up on this pole, and you just hop over them. Otherwise, you get electrocuted. And then, of course, there's birds. Birds are a problem. I've yet to hit a bird, but I'm sure that can definitely happen. And also, running and jumping, oddly, is its own little challenge, because built into this game is sort of a momentum. You start out kind of running real slow. I mean, obviously, if you're a hacker, you're spending a lot of time in the office chair, not really getting a whole lot of exercise. So you gotta build up some momentum to hop to the next platform, and that can be a little bit janky, especially when I was trying to jump up to the top row of cars. I often as not cannot jump up to those top row of cars to save my life. But if you can survive that handful of problems, eventually you float off and you reach the next platform, you hop up, and it goes to the second, third, or fourth, fifth act. So the first thing I did is I just tried to race to the finish, just jumping over cars. At some point, you're going to run into a car that's slightly too far away from you to get to. So my strategy has been to sort of just wait, jump over the robot shooting at you, and then make sure you got plenty of room in front of you of cars you can probably jump to in case he decides to chase you with a giant red laser beam. I don't like getting laser beam tased in the buttocks, so, I'm a fan of not getting murgled by that. There is a progression and an introduction of new elements as the game progresses, which I thought was great. It provides more than just a one-trick, one-off, right off the bat sort of game. And so the next level, you get varying distance cars that kind of hover back and forth, and obviously the birds show up en masse, and there's less signposts. And then in Act 3, you even start to get these buses that I guess there's hover vans that are all janky, and they can, swizzle up and down. Maybe the guy behind the wheel's been drinking, synthale or whatever they got in the future. And I jumped on one of these right off the bat, because I was like, sweet, I could definitely get to another thingy. And then I just kind of sat there, because it seemed like the cybernetic cop would just jitter out and just shoot around me. But then he started dipping real low below the screen, and I was just like, oh, this thing is going to get like an engine on fire, and then it's going to dip out of the sky because of my janky butt just weighing that sucker down. So I got my butt off of there before it murdered me, and got to Act 3. So that was kind of interesting. I mean, it definitely provided some variety, and I definitely like that. It's a little harder to do in these shorter game jams, but I definitely give you guys props for finding a way to wriggle that in there. Going through and kind of thinking about the different objects of ARPs to grade the game, we've got really nice graphics. Obviously, the storyline that I started out describing really kind of sets the tone for, you're a hacker or a revolutionary or some sort of digital rebel, and they want you dead. And then, great color palette. It's that very neon sort of future dystopia. And then I got a very Fifth Element feel, because that was a movie that the start of really really heavily involved a lot of floating cars and that floating Chinese boat stand that served you lunch. That was kind of cool. So I get that really future dystopia vibe. It was really nice. The background was great. There was nice 8-bit architecture in the back. Not too detailed, so it didn't like distract you. There was enough to kind of look back periodically, like, oh, that's cool. There's like a weird tower in there, overlaid and parallaxing. So very nice job, guys. Next we have Overground by Eanes Uger Scary, and this was a cool game. This is more of like, I guess if I had to say, it feels a lot like the Star Wars pod racing games, but like Tronified. And so you're just in this like crazy electronic probe with a dash ability, and you're just racing these other two probes through the digital racetrack, and you got to avoid like walls and ceilings and different little pillar-like obstacles, and then you can just race away. And there's a race where you actually have to beat the AI. So that one was actually pretty difficult. The AIs are pretty smart, and they have a near infinite dash ability. But, I mean, if you can get through there and deal with them, 90% of it is just avoiding the obstacles. And the other piece is there's these little green orbs that provide you additional energy to dash so that you can catch up to the one in front of you and not get murdered. Crashing is, surprisingly in this sort of a game, not an instant fail. You just smash into a wall and it bumps you through the obstacle back onto the course, and you wait for another 3-second countdown and you can get back into the race. It's a different way of punishing you. It just sets you back in the race so that the other AIs can kind of defeat you. Or if you play 2-player, I didn't get anybody to come over and play that in 2-player in time, but I did check it out. It was pretty cool and it does work. You can't really race yourself because the controls are a little bit my brain doesn't work that way. The art style is very simplistic. It's a Unity game. They just put some textures in there that are pretty robotic, with some nice models. Looks like are from a science fiction-y pack. I definitely thought it was pretty good. I mean, I'm not the hugest race guy, but I enjoyed it. The sound is good. There's this cool neon background that you're kind of flying above. It's almost very like parallel world where like you can see the real world from the cybernetic, but you can't quite reach it. The difficulties, when you explore the different difficulties, about the only thing that changes is the game runs a little bit faster. And on, like, the most extreme difficulty, it just, like, rips. And then I just, like, smash into stuff. The turning is a little bit slower as you go up in level 2 along with the speed increase. So it's not just, like, throwing stuff at you. It's also making the turning a little bit more difficult. You gotta kind of skewsh around stuff very, very early. You gotta really lead objects. So that was a nice touch, giving a little bit depth to the difficulty. I definitely got a kick out of that. I can't do anything above like easy or medium to save my life for more than like 10 seconds, but it was cool. I got a kick out of that. A couple of things that I just wanted to note for the creator. When I tried to run it in Chrome, I'll go like to the maybe 30 seconds, and then like the terrain will stop loading. And then, like, I'll just hit stuff, and I can't see it. It's clearly still there, but, like, the textures, for some reason, in Chrome just don't want to load properly. So I ended up just downloading the PC version and recording that sucker. But overall, I got a kick out of it. It's got nice music. The graphics are pretty good for the whole cybernetic idea. I'm not sure how much I'd say it's cyberpunk, because it's, like, robots racing each other and almost like a Star Wars feel. But I still get that cybernetic sort of Tron feel, so very nice job. After that, we've got Cyberdashpunk by Carlo Level Plus Games, and this is sort of like an endless runner where you've got to worry about like hacking the system as you roll through to kind of keep the security from killing you, and then you've also got to deal with hurdles and ducking. So there's a pretty good balance here right off the bat. You load in, and you're having this conversation with this flying robo thing, and I guess they're going to destroy the world. I wasn't quite certain what the plot was initially, and I'm just not that great at this game, so I didn't get that far. But right off the bat, there's a very hacker-esque, like, man vs. machine storyline leading it in with a nice 8-bit artwork. Nothing too fancy, but it's very simple and straightforward. And then it leads you in with a nice tutorial level, which I enjoy that, because a lot of times it'll take me like 20 minutes to figure out how a game is going to run just so I can try and get somewhere and then record it. So you're running along, and First, you learn to jump. You jump, and you can double jump for even bigger chasms that might otherwise murgle you. And then, of course, you'll notice that there's this ball shield, like you're some sort of like you're playing Monkey Ball again from Nintendo. And you're running along, and then periodically there's these laser beams. And the color of your ball will allow you to bypass that particular color of laser beam as if you're hacking through it so you don't get murgled. And then you gotta alternate it with the A key so that you can swap between blue and purple and hack those two types of laser beams. And then, of course, comes the slide. Periodically there's this chunket that's very obviously got like this weird, it's like a weird chunk. You can just kind of see it's like a weird building you got to slide under, or else it'll clip your head off you. My problem is there's just too much stuff going on at once right off the bat through the tutorial level for me to handle too well. Right off the bat, you jump, you got to go through 2 laser beams that you don't see right until you hit them, and then you got to jump again, then hit a laser beam, and then jump, and then dive. And this is where my experience kind of falls apart. I'm not the greatest endless runner, especially if it's very fast-paced. The one thing I would say is maybe slow the introduction of obstacles down right after the tutorial and kind of like ramp them up as you get further and further along in the level. So you've got like this sort of rhythm going where you're like, okay, switch the color of the shield, jump, switch the color of the shield, double jump, switch the color of the shield, dive under, because like, A, I have trouble with the multitasking that quickly, and B, it seems like the game only wants you to like complete one action before doing another, so I couldn't just like jump as I swapped shields, so that ended up getting me killed a lot, and then I ended up trying to swap shield and then not double jumping quick enough and hitting the wall. So the speed is sort of difficult for someone like me. There's probably lots of people out there who just tore through this game, but I didn't have the greatest time. But on the whole, I love the concept. The artwork is strong. The theme of like cyberpunky murgliness is very strong, where you're like, I gotta hack these robots, they don't blow up the world. So very nice job. Alrighty, next up we have Cybercity Downfall by Wout Pet. Wout? What? I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I apologize if I've murmured it. So Cybercity Downfall is a lot like that first game that I checked out when the Game Jam only had about 25 entries. And you're falling endlessly through this cybernetic city, and the artwork kind of it gives me this sort of insecty, robotic Borg feeling. And you've got to avoid these floating platforms that are coming up at your face, or you can shoot them for extra points. And then otherwise, your score is based upon distance. How long have you survived infiltrating this weird cybernetic city to try to hack it, presumably? I'm not sure if you're a person or a robot, but it's certainly interesting. The loading screen starts out with this insectoid-looking guy, so I got to assume I wasn't too far off the bat with the insectoid sort of cybernetic Borg thing going on. And so, as you fall, there's a few things to worry about. A, you don't have infinite ammo. It's not like Raiden X or any of those other, old-school arcade spaceship shooters. So you gotta be careful which things you use your bullets on. Sometimes you might just have to make a kitsch decision and shoot through to keep staying alive, and sometimes you just don't have a lot going on, so you're like, I'll just get some extra points, I'll just shoot all the platforms until I'm out of bullets, and I'll just wait till I can find another green power pack and replenish. And then, of course, there's a slow-mo power pack that gives you bullets and slows down time so that the platforms don't shoot too fast at your face, give you time to react, give you time to see what you're going to do and make a plan. Then, of course, there's these little purple explodies that kind of just destroy everything. And that's about it. You just gotta last as long as you can. It's pretty good. I got a kick out of it. This is something you could play for a while and sink a lot of time in it, just trying to beat your old score, a lot like the Flappy Bird games. And it's got a very strong, I said right off the bat, it's got this Borg vibe. It's got a very strong art style. The 8-bit in the background is fantastic. It's parallaxing. There's this endless cityscape, almost like you're playing Blade Runner or something. And you got a cool little robo-ship. The only complaint I would have is, maybe change up the enemies so they're not flying platforms, but I wouldn't worry about that too much. Very good game. I got a kick out of it. Very nice job, guys. And so, for the very last piece, we have the Interzone Waste Scanning mission by Nick. And so this is sort of a weird concept for a game, which I was not expecting, but it seemed kind of cool. So you're on this backwoods planet. It doesn't breathe, isn't covered in oxygen. And there's these, there's the citizenry of this planet You got to find out who's an augmented creature and who isn't, because, you know, the augments are this criminal underbelly of society, and they want to know who's doing what so that they don't murgle the knights or the folks that you represent, who are the sort of the police of this world. So you start out, you're in this spacesuit, you have a limited amount of oxygen, and you got to interview these crazy alien creatures to see who's evil and who's not. And so if you find out, if you get this vibe like, yeah, this guy's kind of sketchy, then you got to scan him so that you can find out if he's an augment, and then you get a tick off on the screen, and then you can go to the next guy, because you got, you know, between 1 and like 5 to 10 people you got to scan before your oxygen runs out. So if you scan the right guy and it's an augment, you get 15 oxygen. If you scan the wrong guy just trying to blitz through the level, you're going to lose 30 seconds worth of oxygen. So you can't just mess around because you've got a very limited supply, and there's potentially a boatload of these guys that you got to interview. So their interviewing process typically goes like, oh, yeah, I mean, it's a nice day out. I mean, could you maybe dim your visor light? I'm going to go return some VHS tapes to the Blockbuster. And I was like, wait a minute, you support Blockbuster? Scan? Oh, crap. So, I mean, like, after that, I'm like, is this a Blockbuster? No, it's not. It's just an old school sort of VHS retro joke. So the people who are evil, they tend to be like, yeah, I got an evil corporation. You leave me alone, Sonny. They like scan, like, oh, you're an augment. And then they glow, and you can keep track of the ones that you know are an augment because they're glowing all of a sudden. And so you got to kind of find your way through. I had a couple problems with that. Some of the talks that were evil didn't strike me as particularly sinister. Like, some guys didn't like me. I mean, if some stranger walked up to me, it didn't matter if they were a cop, and started buggering me about, like, who I am and what I'm doing for no reason, I'd be a little PO'd too. So, I mean, that didn't strike me as particularly sinister, but he ended up being evil anyway. And so once you've gotten all the guys scanned and you're not dead from suffocation, they open up the door to what looks like a crazy nightclub, and you go to the next level, and there's some more guys you gotta scan. So the concept is actually a lot simpler than I thought. I ended up enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would, because that just seemed like something tedious on paper. But in practice, it's actually kind of almost like LA Noire investigative, where you gotta kind of think quickly, like, is this an evil statement? And get on to the next guy before your oxygen runs out. And then if you save a bunch of oxygen and you're just really efficient about it, then they roll over some of that to the next level, so you keep a little bit extra to reward you for being efficient. So it's got a very strong art style. You can sit right off the bat, you're this official-looking guy, you're in a spacesuit, and there's these crazy, almost like crab, cichlid insect creatures that you gotta talk to. And then there's like a cool nightclub and some background ambiance in the nighttime. It's very simple, very straightforward, and it's almost like the ambiance of the game is almost rather relaxing, despite the fact that you might suffocate in like a minute. So I liked it. It was very good. Not a concept I was expecting for the Cyberpunk game jam at all. So congrats on catching me off guard with that one, because that was not something I was expecting. But I definitely liked it. So keep up the good work with that. I liked the sound. The sound really flowed well with the game. The artwork, obviously, as I said before, was well done. So I think that's about it. Alrighty, so that concludes the Cyberpunk Game Jam Volume 3. We're running low on time for the voting period, so make sure, you game creators, you get in there and you vote on other people's stuff. You play the crud out of every game you can get your hands on. There's still some folks that haven't seen any voting yet from what I'm seeing, so make sure you get in there and do your part to participate and to get your votes out, and make sure people who, need some visibility get that. And I'm certainly going to be doing at least 2 more Game Jam showcases, and I've got some interviews planned. I figured out over the weekend what we're going to talk about for those, so I'm going to message some of you guys in the coming days, see what we can work out as far as short interviews are concerned. And we'll catch you next time. I've been Larry Chupacabra. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and ta-ta for now.